to my channel. Tiffany here with the last of 3 tutorials on Teoritta from the anime Sentenced to be a Hero. And if you missed part 1 and part 2 of the robe and the armor, make sure to go back and watch those videos. And this one is specifically on the wig. Yee! And this was a challenging wig, so I'm gonna try my hardest to go over how I made everything from a base curly wig, from straightening it to dyeing all of the hair so you have a slight orange gradient, making the gravity defying ponytail flame thingy, as well as how I styled some of the bangs. But before we begin, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all of my tutorials. So let's begin. And of course, you're gonna need a base blonde wig, and I got mine on Amazon. I'll have a link in the description. It did not look like this image when I received it. It was a lot more curly and floofy, so I did have to brush it out and steam it straight. And Teoritta's hair has a natural gradient from blonde to the tips being a orange color. And the wig that I got is a synthetic wig, which means you will need synthetic dye to change the color. And I'm going to be using the RIT dye. More specifically, the color apricot orange from RIT, and it's going to be their synthetic dye. You'll also need a bucket, some gloves, some mixing spoons, some dishwasher soap, and of course your hot water. And following the instructions that are indicated on the bottle, I did the appropriate amount of each part. And when I do a gradient for dyeing wigs, I always find it is best to actually put your wig on a wig head and pin it in place. This will make it so you are easily able to get a consistent gradient at the bottom, dunking the wig in and out of the dye bath slowly on the tips, submerging it as you go. This will make it so it's not just a harsh line on the hair, and it'll look like it's more of a natural gradient going through the wig. I then let the bottom portion of the hair sit in the dye bath for around, I think, an hour, and then came back and rinsed it out. And you'll get a subtle gradient by doing this process. So you can see here, once it is dry, you have the original blonde-haired wig that will go towards a light orange to a somewhat darker orange. Now, this result was okay, but I was honestly not too happy with it, and later on in the video I'll go over how I intensified this orange. But first, let's talk about the ponytail, and more specifically the ponytail base, which I ended up designing a part that you can 3D print, and it is available on my website, TiffanyGordonCosplay.com. I'll have a link in the description. And this piece I designed to fit around the curvature of your head while wearing a wig cap, and it also has a hole in the top so you can insert a piece into it, kind of like a candlestick holder. And after figuring out the correct placement of where I wanted it to sit inside the wig, I ended up cutting a very small hole into the top and inserting the pipe portion of the 3D printed part. And for permanently attaching it to the wig, I ended up adding some hot glue to attach it. And for the actual ponytail shape, I do have a pattern for that also on my website, which I printed out and cut so that way it would be the exact shape that I wanted for the ponytail. And I had laying around some steel rods, so I ended up using that and bending it to the basic shape that I wanted this ponytail to be. This is important because you will need a bone structure to hold the ponytail up and away from your body and not just fall straight down. And the material that we're going to be sandwiching around that metal rod is actually going to be false shape. And this is a material that you're going to want to cut out twice and then glue it to your wire, and then sandwich the wire in between the false shape using some hot glue. And then with a heating tool, you will lightly heat up the false shape. And by doing this, it's actually gonna make all of the fibers shrink ever so slightly, but become stiff. So this will also help with a more structural shape and be a great surface for you to glue all of your hair on later on. And then you just need to attach it inside of the ponytail base. And I just used some hot glue and then inserted it and held it until the hot glue cooled. And that pretty much finished the structural support for this. Now the fox shape is white, and when you just attach your hair on top of it, the white will show through. You'll want to at least add a base color that is similar to the hair color that you want in the end. So I went in with an airbrush and some yellow airbrush paint and painted all of the fox shape so that way it wouldn't peep through as much when we start to add all of the hair. And speaking of the hair, we're actually going to be removing some of the hair wefts from the bottom side. So you'll want to remove around 4 to 5 wefts so that way we will be able to use that for attaching it to the ponytail. And for this, you'll want to skip every 1 or 2 wefts so that way it doesn't look like there is a hole in the wig that's missing hair. And the easiest tool for doing this is using a seam ripper, because each of these wefts are each sewn to the wig, so you can just slightly remove some of the stitching and it should easily come off. And the goal that we want to make is our own version of wefts that look something like this. And there are a lot of different ways that you can do it, but this is the method I like to do that has the least chemicals involved. And for this process, you will need a rat tail comb, you'll need a silicone mat, of course your hair wefts, you'll need hot glue, and I like to use Surebonder hot glue because they have a specific Cosplay stick brand, and then I have a silicone press stick so that way I don't burn my fingers, and of course scissors. And you'll first lay one weft that is folded a few times on top of your silicone mat. You'll comb it so it lays all nice and even, and then you'll do a strip of hot glue across it so that way you can have 3 to 4 inches underneath of hair. I then grab a silicone press and I will push it on top of the hot glue and wait for it to cool. And then this will also protect my fingers and it'll make it so your hot glue is pushed flat and will go between the fibers. Then you're going to flip the hair onto the other side, and following the same glue spot, you will do another strip of hot glue and repeat the process by pressing with the silicone pad. And once the glue is all cool, you can then cut it with some scissors down the center, and then you have your own created smaller weft. Next, we're going to be attaching it to the actual ponytail. And again, we're going to be using more hot glue. And we're going to start at the very bottom of the ponytail, and we're going to be slowly wrapping it around from the bottom going upward in strips. And a little trick that I do is I will attach the hair with the hot glue, and then with the hot glue tip, because it is still hot, I will slightly push where the glue was on that hair with the hot tip, and it will start to fuse to the fox shape and will blend in a lot better, and you won't see the hot glue as much. I'll then do a few tiny tacks of hot glue onto the sides just because this is a much more complicated shape to kind of help hold the hair in the same direction that I want. Then grab some hairspray, and you can use the Got To Be hairspray, which is specific for more wigs, or I like to use the Big Sexy Hair hairspray as I find that has a strong bond as well. You'll apply it to all of the hair that you have, and using a rat tail comb and a blow dryer on low heat, you will slowly start to push it into the shape that you want, and this is going to help lock all those fibers in place and make it not so fluffy. Then just proceed doing this for a very long time. I will note that I had to trim some of the hair in certain spots and put them in random spots as this flame shape was very complicated. But once you get to the very top, I always like to blend in for my wigs by grabbing some of the hair from the actual wig and put it into the ponytail. This is gonna make it look smoother, it's gonna look more connected and less of a random piece. And I'll do a combination of a little bit of hot glue, a lot of hairspray, and then slowly combing it down the whole shape of the ponytail. And the final that I like to do onto my wigs for holding and giving an even, consistent look to it is using clear gel tacky glue. And I'll apply it onto the entire ponytail and smooth it out with my hands going down towards the base of the ponytail. And this will just help hold all of the fibers down, and then use a hairdryer to help dry the glue. Speaking of the glue, it does dry clear. Just be careful not to apply too much because then it might get a little tacky and takes a lot longer to dry. And then for adding color to the ponytail. And for this part, I found it was best to still have the wig attached to a wig head and then put all of the extra hair in a bag so that way it wouldn't get hit by any of the excess spray from the airbrush. And I'm going to be using airbrush paint provided by Createx Colors and my airbrush equipment provided by Iwata Airbrush. And I started at the base of the ponytail with more of a yellow kind of color, specifically color Wicked Golden Yellow, that I was going to do heavy towards the bottom and kind of do more of a mist going towards the top so it would blend into the natural blonde-like color of the wig. And then changing to a mixture of that Wicked Golden Yellow and Pyro Orange this time. And I was moving it more down towards the base to slowly create that natural gradient towards the orange. And for that fiery glow-like look, I added a tiny bit of red to that batch of colors and sprayed it more towards the sides of this flame on the ponytail to really give that glowy look. But as I said in the beginning of the video, I was not happy with the overall synthetic dye that I did for the bottom of the wig, so I ended up going back with a little bit of an orange mixture of airbrush paint onto the tips, and it turned out so much better. The reason I didn't do this initially is because when you use synthetic dye, it penetrates into the synthetic wig, and that gives you a permanent bond of that color. When you do airbrush paint, it's kind of like applying mascara to your eyelashes, where it's just applying the paint or the mascara onto the outer part. And so it's not permanently bonding, it's just sitting on the surface. Later on, if you are to brush the wig, the paint will actually start to chip off slightly. It will also rub onto any of your clothing and will slowly change the color of your fabric to the color of the wig. So I don't typically do this, but it does give more vibrant colors. So just something to be aware of. Then for styling the bangs. And for this, I ended up segmenting the hair into 4 sections. Focusing on the very front inner bangs first, where I used some scissors and cut them ever so slightly at an angle so that way it would help the hair lay in that direction, followed with some hairspray to help hold it in place. And of course, anytime you use hairspray on a wig, always go back with a hairdryer on a cool setting of air so that way the hairspray will dry evenly and not be bubbly on the surface, and will help that hairspray all bond to itself and stay in that shape that you want it to be. And Teoritta has these 2 decorative hair clips, which I did end up 3D printing. You can find that file on my website, link in the description. And after I had printed them out in PLA filament and airbrush painted them black, I attached them to the hair using hot glue. Then for the farther back bangs, which end up going on top of the ones we just styled and will actually kind of sit on your face. And I did these the exact same way as the other bangs, where I pulled them all slightly forward at an angle, trimmed them with some scissors, and then locked them in place with some hairspray as well as our hairdryer. And to ensure that the tip parts of these bangs would hold together better, I went back with our clear gel tacky glue and kind of did it just on the tips to hold, and then again using the hairdryer to help it dry. A little side note about wearing this wig. I've worn it now twice. One for a photo shoot at home, as well as one for a full day at a convention where I guested at Otafest in Canada. So it's been international now. Ooh. And it's actually lightweight, but because of having the ponytail have the side piece, you tend to hit things with it because it sticks out a bit. It does, because of the length of the point, kind of get caught underneath the armor at times, and because it's just all on one side, you do tend to kind of have a little bit of a crooked neck by the end of the day just because you have this random thing that you're balancing. But it was pretty fine, and I think the design worked out really well for doing a very structural piece. And if you're going to want to do something with a ponytail like this that comes straight out of the head, and I think this design will work out perfect for you. With that all being said, thank you for watching this tutorial. I hope this wig video was helpful for either making Teoritta as your next cosplay or styling another wig for another character. And if it was helpful, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your feedback. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And a big thank you to all of my company sponsors as well as all of my members here on YouTube. Specifically those legendary members who help so that way I can continue doing this, bringing you more videos like this or other types. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching this 3-part video for making a Teoritta costume. I hope it was helpful, and I'll see you for our next one. Much love, guys.